this is the story of Cambodia's last elephants and the fight against their extinction. I recently went to Mondulkiri in northeastern Cambodia, a decreasingly forested part of Cambodia that was once an ideal habitat for elephants. It is also home to the Bunnong Tribe, an indigenous tribe distinct from Khmer who make up 70% of Mondulkiri's population. The Bunnong Tribe have lived side by side with elephants for millennia. The elephant is at the heart of their culture and identity, as well as their daily livelihood. Throughout their history, they have been used for the movement of people and goods, for farming, and more recently as a means to earn money from tourists. And despite being used for labor, they are cared for, revered, and even worshipped. There was once over 300,000 elephants in Cambodia. At the time of recording, there are fewer than 300 in the wild and 70 in captivity, making them an endangered species. And in this video, I will take you on a tour of an elephant sanctuary. And until I went on this tour, I was quite ignorant to the broader elephant situation in Cambodia. And since returning, I've continued doing my research. So in this video, as I take you on this tour, me from the future will step in and provide some important context, because although we had fun, this is a sad story. Nevertheless, it's a story that needs to be told for the sake of the dwindling elephant population. And with that, I welcome you to episode 5 of the Cambodia Travel Series. Good morning. It's adventure time, but first coffee. And this is one of my favorite travel companions, after Dhaniella, of course. And today we've got an exciting day ahead. We're going out to see the Cambodian elephants this morning. We'll be going out walking with them, and I think we'll also get to bathe them. Let's go. And we're off. We got in the back of a pickup truck and headed towards a patch of protected forest. And yes, the forests need protection because of legal and illegal deforestation, but more on that later. And we headed over to the Mondulkiri Elephant Project Sanctuary, which was recommended to us by a friend. And if you come, please be selective of who you choose to see the elephants with, because elephant business can be dirty business. And of course, all the sanctuaries will claim to act in the best interest of the elephants and the Bunnong people. However, it is hard to validate the legitimacy of these claims. Anyway, on our short visit, we saw no mistreatment of the elephants, no heavy-handed or forceful behavior, and the Bunnong staff all seemed quite content. So we're approaching Mondulkiri Project, which is a 100% Cambodian-owned NGO that supports the rescue and protection of the local elephants, and a lot of funds also go towards supporting the Bunnong Tribe, which we'll get to see later today. Cool.
So good morning, everyone. So my name is Duong.
Meet Duong, our guide for the day from the Bunnong Tribe. He met Gordon Ramsay, but more on him and his people later and in the next episode. But in short, the Bunnong people are an indigenous Cambodian minority ethnic group from the highlands of Cambodia that spill over into Vietnam. The Bunnong are animists and live in close harmony with the forests from which they source all food, medicine, and all the daily and living necessities. So that stick of bamboo right there, we're going to chop up into different pieces and make drinking cups out of it, which is great. It's a really sustainable material to make stuff with, whether it's a home, a cup, or a cooking instrument. He's got a really good set of nature survival skills that I certainly lack. While I'm busy during the week learning new Excel formulas, he's out here refining his survival skills. And if there's ever an apocalypse, I know who will survive longer. It's not me. And the Bunnong people and elephants have had a multi-thousand-year relationship where the elephants have served them many functions, much like humans owning horses in the West. And yes, this is hard work, but there used to be many elephants in the Bunnong communities, so the workload was shared, giving them plenty of time to rest and recover and roam the forests. They are, after all, considered family and even as religious symbols. This was, of course, until the great die-off. But before covering that, let's go meet 3 of these elephants. So we're now walking in the jungle with our bananas to meet 3 elephants that are protected through Mondulkiri Project. And we got a bit of a backstory to each of these elephants. There's Happy, Princess, and Gomvin, and they all have a different life story, at least before arriving here. And so these elephants are still a little bit traumatized from their past. So we come in peace with bananas, which helps build a bit of trust and a better relationship with humans. Tasty treats. Oh, I see one in the distance. Wow.
Hello.
Hey, Happy.
You're so beautiful.
Just a big, gentle giant. So this right here is Happy. She used to work in the logging industry, doing, well, literally back-breaking work. And since she arrived in Mondulkiri project, she's sort of rediscovering her freedom, but doesn't really like humans and hates the sound of chainsaws. Oh my goodness. And she doesn't like to be touched. Okay.
Yummy.
We then set off deeper into the forest to find the other two elephants. Okay, these ones are not as fearful of humans. And they weren't shy to greet us. They pinned us back against the bridge, trying to get the bananas. So here we have Camden. And right behind me, we've got Princess. Here she goes. You got it. Oh, oh, look at that. So that behind me is Princess. She's 50 years old and used to work in tourism, pulling people around, and people would sit on her back. So again, back-breaking work. And then over here we have Cambodian. She's Princess's best friend and also worked in tourism and was rescued in 2015 from Dhaniella province. But she has lost sight in one of her eyes. She used to live in a cage and they treated her quite badly. She's a cheeky one. So we're out of bananas and now they're off doing their own thing, eating bamboo. That was a really nice experience. It was really interesting to see how each of the elephants really had its own personality depending on his past and just general demeanor. And they're off to eat some bamboo, we're off to eat some lunch. So what caused the rapid population decline and what was the impact? Well, there's no single reason, but a plethora of external factors. And here I'll try to summarize the four main ones. For one, during the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong entered these jungles and used elephants to move military supplies. So the US bombed this region, specifically the elephant convoys. And then came the Khmer Rouge, a violent communist uprising that led to a 4-year civil war, and during this period the Bunnong people were displaced and forced into hard labor, resulting in many years of suffering, equally for the Bunnong people and the elephants. The aggressive elephants were ruthlessly murdered and many were killed for their tusks. Then came a wave of tourism to Cambodia, and elephant riding around Angkor Wat in Siem Reap became a popular attraction. This saw many elephants sold off and removed from their natural habitats and brought to Siem Reap. These elephants would carry anywhere from 2 to 4 people at a time, all day, every day, for upwards of 20 hours, pretty much until they were completely exhausted, sick, or injured, often with spinal injuries, because elephants did not evolve to carry heavy loads on their backs. And thankfully, only in 2020 was this banned. And one final factor is that of deforestation. So unfortunately, the forests of Mondulkiri are under a great threat. That threat, unfortunately, is us, humans. In the year 2000, 80% of Mondulkiri province was forested. This number was down to 30% in 2017, I believe. And today that must be even less, which is really quite disheartening. And our guide was telling us that this area that surrounds me, just 2 years ago, at the onset of COVID, was all part of the jungle. However, since tourism ceased to come, they really sped up the deforestation of this area. Much of it is done illegally, and a surprising amount is done legally, and the reasons are the wood has economic value. There's a huge demand from China and Vietnam, which creates an incentive to deforest these lands. And then once deforested, whether legal or illegal, the land can be made arable for various cash crops. We saw some banana plantations, cashew plantations, as well as rubber plantations. And this is linked to the growing global demand for tires, which translates into lush ancestral forests being converted to monocrops, often seemingly endless rows of rubber trees. And with that, elephant habitats are being split up and destroyed, and elephants are finding themselves unable to roam freely. And if they do roam freely and trample on any of these various plantations, the mahouts are held accountable. And much of this is taking place because many of the Bunnong people do not have land titles. They never knew that this land could belong to anyone else. And today, 3/4 of Cambodian farmland is being leased by the government to foreign companies who offer little or no compensation and bring few local benefits. And so as they take the land, they're also taking away local livelihoods. And with that, thousands of years of tradition are unraveling because of these external interests who put profit over people. Yeah, it's a really situation. Let's try to lighten the mood and go for a swim with the elephants, and then we'll talk about how we can slow the decline and start protecting the last remaining elephants. In the interest of time, I'll speak over what was a pretty weird and wonderful experience getting to swim with the elephants. It seems the modern world and the dark side of capitalism are closing in on the Bunnong and the elephants. So what can we do to protect them? Suppose indirectly, you and me, we can stop consuming tires and cashews, but that doesn't seem like a good immediate solution. For now, there needs to be an incentive, one that is sustainable, not just environmentally sustainable, but also economically, socially, and culturally. And at the end of the day, money talks, and as terrible as this sounds, elephants need to be made more profitable alive than dead. But we also don't want them to be alive and abused and worked to death, so no more elephant riding. We're out of bananas, so they're off now doing their own thing. Now, really quite a special experience. And from the water, you have to look up these huge animals. It's really, really special.
We're cold. We have rice wine.
Happy water.
Happy water, okay.
So with that, I see only one real viable option to stop the decline, and this option has to protect the whole ecosystem, the elephants, the land, and the Bunnong people. And this option already exists on a small scale. It's elephant sanctuaries just like this one. These require buying or renting and protecting large plots of land large enough for elephants to roam freely, and this reduces the potential for deforestation. It also requires hiring local Bunnong rangers to spot poachers as well as local guides. So of course, achieving this model on a much larger scale will be very challenging and will require government support. But also at the core, it will require an element of education for the locals and tourists alike. So for now, I invite you. Come to Mondulkiri, visit a sanctuary, find yourself entertained by these majestic animals and educated by the local guides. Because the more visitors, the more protection, and the more protection, the more elephants. But of course, much more will need to be done to restore the population to what it once was. This brings us to the end. Thank you for watching. This was province number 8 of the Cambodia Travel Series, Mondulkiri province, a really beautiful place, and I have 1 or 2 more videos in the works coming out from Mondulkiri, so do stay tuned. Also, this video took on a slightly different tone to my previous videos. It was less upbeat, maybe a little more depressing. I think that's just the nature of the topic, but it's also a much more researched and essentially I deep dove and made some sort of vlogumentary style video. So let me know if you enjoyed. It's a little more work on my end, but I do think it's more educational for you and for me. So I welcome your feedback. And very lastly, of course, as always, if you enjoyed this video, do consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. That's it from me. I'll see you in the next one.